welcome to another On the Books. I am here today with one of my good friends and fellow writer, Mr. Eric Vargas. Hello, Eric, and welcome.
Hey, Norm, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. This holiday season has been good to me. Today we're here to talk about writing, but not anything particular that Eric has written about or that I have written about, but on the whole topic which seems to be prevalent in our world at this time, the whole topic of violence and violence in literature. So, violence, what do you think it is?
I mean, I don't know, violence I think is one of those ineffable kind of phenomena in life. I think it's ontologically intertwined with all existence. You can't. It's one of the indispensable and indivisible aspects of just life itself.
Are we as human beings inherently violent?
I think so, absolutely. I mean, everything pretty much up to the rise of civilization has just been things killing each other and eating them.
That's interesting. It's great whites still eat us.
Yeah. We try to prevent that.
Oh, yes, we do. In fact, you're more likely to be struck by lightning than you are to be eaten by a great white.
And I like those odds.
As do I. Now, you've just recently completed, and it's off to the publisher, a book called Things Fall Apart.
Well, I'm still querying agent, so.
Right, but I mean, the point is it's past the editing stage.
Yes.
It's now out there.
Yes.
And what role does violence play in that book?
Violence is kind of the one of the central roles in all. It's definitely integral. It's in all of human history, there's always periods of times where violence is just ubiquitous, and it's the Black Plagues, World War II, World War I, the Bolshevik Revolution, the invasion of the Mongols, the Crusades, the American Revolution, the
American slavery,
Manifest Destiny. Yeah, it's not. So there's always these periods where violence becomes absolutely ubiquitous, and it's like a hyper-violence, the ultra-violence of, say, A Clockwork Orange, those kinds of periods, and so the violence in the novel really takes that kind of central role.
Are there any Holocaust novels, for instance, that you have a familiarity with?
I know Elie Wiesel's Night, and then later on his was it Dawn? No, was it Day or Dawn?
I'm not 100%.
I'm not particularly sure. But they followed in thematically.
So violence is obviously an integral part in those novels.
Correct.
I was reading a Daniel Silva novel, and one of the most horrendous examples of violence occurred was it was fiction, but they were chasing a former concentration camp commander who was also very in tune with the arts. And so he had a Jewish violin player playing different great works of music. And he would stop people as they walked by and ask them if they knew what they were playing. And if they didn't, he shot him in the head. That is violence.
Yes, absolutely. But it's actually, I would say it's a kind of evil is what I would call it. But I mean but violence can be for good, for evil. One of the things about fiction or about art in general is that it always tries to capture reality. Mm-hmm. And so, and of course, that's impossible. I mean, to really capture reality, you'd have to create a whole other universe, and of course, you can't do that. So what you end up doing in fiction is you try to condense or synthesize the truths into something that you can extract meaning out of. Uh-huh. So it's not as if And you can do that to varying degrees. I mean, you can have, say, fantasy violence, you can have science fiction or literary. And the thing about a book is that it's, a book is a lot like a loom. It's and so are individual people. So say you have a loom with a shuttle. It's going across the warp, and the warp is, the shuttle is a mirror. Well, if you're sitting there, you're reading the book. Well, sometimes the shuttle will be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and every once in a while, the shuttles between the book and the person, or between the person and person, will line up, and all of a sudden you have this infinite reduction, and you have a glimpse of infinity. And so you have and you can never see the whole. You can always only see a facet, but that's where you get the meaning out of. And for every single person that there is, well, you're all going to get a little bit of a different meaning, and so it's all part of the whole.
Now, I'm not sure if you've read The Godfather, but
I have.
You've read the book, dude, not just seen the movie.
I didn't really like the book. It was actually, this is one of the cases where the movie was far superior than the book.
And why was that?
I imagine because it was the movie was faithful to reality. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'd say that that it was far too romantic. In fact, I think Gomorrah was a much better film in depicting the mafia, the Italian mafia. The problem is with
Ma Familia,
whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Evil by whichever word you want to call it. But the problem is that art is something that prepares you for life, whether or not you realize it or not.
That's an Is all violence evil?
No, I don't think we think of all violence is evil. When you put someone to death for crimes, let's say treason or for murder, well, that's retributive violence, and we don't consider that good. We kind of consider
revenge violence is okay.
No, that's completely different. Because when you're looking at the difference between retributive violence conducted by the state as opposed to conducted between individuals is that the state is given the power from the individuals. It's given legitimacy, and they're independent, they're impartial. So it's not to be. So once it's done, once the state has decreed, okay, this is the violence that we are going to enact for this cause and for this reason, then it's done.
And it's okay.
Yeah, and it's okay. But
when Stalin killed the kulaks,
well,
all over the Ukraine, that was okay.
We would say that would be illegitimate. And
Why?
The reason is because is that if we're getting into some serious politics here, but the reason is
well, we got a Russian-loving president now.
I suppose we did.
Actually, I take that back.
Well, no, it seems to be true. He's a Russophile, but no, it's. The amount of legitimacy comes from is that there was no cause for it. It wasn't retributive justice. It wasn't done in any kind of justice. This was a means to an end. The people themselves were not an end. They were just a means to creation of something.
Okay. So when the Americans moved across the continent and slaughtered the native people in order to get there.
Yeah, there's definitely parallels.
That was okay.
No, there's definitely parallels between Manifest Destiny and Russian imperialism.
Okay, I'm trying to stay with literature.
Yeah,
it's
okay. That's the thing about literature is that it touches on every little thing, and so what we were just talking about is like you try to account for as much as reality as possible. All literature does that.
So Alex Haley's Roots, without the violence, really wouldn't depict American slavery.
It wouldn't be an accurate depiction. Now I've got problems with Roots because it leaves out a whole lot of the actual history.
Okay, well, but your point is then, I think, that the violence of a situation is an integral part of it.
Correct.
And if you're going to reflect it in fiction, then you better reflect the violence.
Accurately. And not, so here's the thing. So let's take take a look at, say, different kinds of violence. We take a look at fantasy violence, and we can take a look at realistic depictions. So take Lord of the Rings, where people, you're fighting between good and evil. You have orcs and humans and elves and all of those things, and they'll sit there, they'll shoot arrows at each other and cut each other's heads off, and there's nary a drop of blood to be seen. You take a look at, say, maybe Saving Private Ryan, and the depictions of violence in that, where someone gets their leg blown off, or they they have their guts spill out. Well, guess what? That's the more accurate representation. So the idea of it, to bring it to literature, take the Iliad, with the kind of violence that's depicted in there, it's extraordinarily accurate, almost scientific in the way that it's done.
We live in a very particular century now. Some would say probably the most violent century in human history.
I would say this is one of the most peaceful centuries of the. Let's say
there were two major wars.
That would be the 20th century. This is the 21st.
Oh, I was born in 1950.
You're showing your age,
I
man.
apologize. That's why I don't put any Grecian formula in the hair. I just come with it.
There you go.
Boy, you got me there.
But no, it's here's the thing about I say about violence and things, is that we're seeing more and more of it.
Right.
It's not that it's more prevalent.
In preparing for this show, I came across an essay, Violence in Literature. It appeared on a website, enotes.com, topics, violence-literature-97. I only give the web so somebody can go look at it, but it opens with these words, and I wanted to bring it to the show today. In many respects, the 20th century defined itself by reflecting the prevalent violence of modern society. From the destruction of large-scale warfare to individual crimes of murder, rape, and abuse. Critics of modern literature have generally attributed this to both the sensational appeal of violent behavior and its potential to shock readers by shaking their beliefs. Beliefs in what?
Say civilization, I suppose you could say. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in all of that. I think we could take a look from the start. The presupposition that people are any more violent today than they were before, I think, is ludicrous, because people are the same. I mean, our genetics haven't changed. It's just our means of killing is greater. A spear really can't compete with a 500-pound bomb. So it's just a matter of technology. As for
unless you're the antelope that gets it in the throat.
Yeah, well, and then there's that, yeah. But I mean, we typically manage how we kill our animals. I mean, that's actually industrial. And the problem, I suppose, is when we start industrially killing human beings. But that's a whole other thing. And I think that could be worth its own show.
So was the violence necessary, for instance, to Upton Sinclair's The Jungle?
Never read The Jungle.
Oh, well, it's about the meatpacking industry in Chicago, and it got pretty gory.
All right.
And, if you go and see a slaughterhouse today, it's really not much different.
No, I imagine that it's not. Well, it's like the refrigerator. It hasn't changed. There's only so many ways you can kill a cow.
Half the cows are dead, though, when they got them.
Well,
the guy misses with the steel bar. The next one comes along.
Well, that's life.
Yes.
But to go.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. But I mean, so when you talk about what shock appeal, I don't think that's anything different that we have seen. I mean, you look at the Colosseum, you look at the gladiator fights. Well, that went on for centuries, and it's not as if that
still does every Sunday.
And
in the National Football League.
One could argue that that live leaks, websites like that, where you can watch actual battles go out. Well, you say, well, that's just an extension of that, or the modern iteration of it. But I mean, that's something that all people have and love. I mean, people have a love of spectacle. Ecclesiastes says, the eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear with hearing. And so that's kind of one of the things that literature does is try to show you the alternative to just pure sensationalism.
So does the violence give the story meaning?
No, but you can't really have meaning without it. Because, I mean, okay, so you can have two characters in a room talking, there being no violence. That's perfectly fine. But I mean, if you're trying to account for the entire human condition, then to ignore that part, well, you can't do it because it's not honest to reality. And the problem, and again, the point of art is to prepare one for reality, so that you're not, so that when you are confronted with, tragedies in life, you're not taken unawares. It doesn't destroy you.
I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit.
Okay.
You've written a long and complex novel. The violence is an integral part of it. You would agree.
Yes.
How does it give your novel meaning?
Well, it's like what I think of it like. Think of a book as like a particle accelerator.
Okay.
You take two atoms, you smash them together, you read out what comes out. You study, kind of the subatomic particles that come out. Okay, well that's for me what a book is. Stanley Kubrick, when he was writing Paths of Glory, he made the observation that one of the great things when writing about war is that situations that would otherwise seem contrived in any other setting, you are allowed to place your characters into immediately, and so you can see how it is that they react. You can play out ideas, and that's part of it. And that's kind of what the idea was the book. One aspect of it was to play out ideas and to see logically where they go. So. And to do it as realistically as possible. And I think that's another part of being as true to reality, as accurate as you possibly can. Iwan, he's an artist in China, kind of the head of one of the realist schools. And he made the observation that it's easy to do surrealism, to do cubist, and to do modern art. And he says he doesn't really care for it because it's so easy. He says realism is technically, just from a technical aspect, is harder to do. It requires a keener eye, a better hand to do. And
really?
Yeah. So, and I mean, if you've seen his Tibetan pictures, absolutely amazing. Now, this isn't to say that, if you take a look at, say, something like Francisco de Goya's work, the black paintings, or Bruegel the Elder's The Triumph
Black as in noir paintings.
Correct.
Okay.
Or, say, Bruegel the Elder's The Triumph of Death, which is personally one of my favorite paintings that have ever been done. And The Triumph of Death is simply just this enormous bleak landscape where everyone is either dead or dying and death is claiming everyone. But it's done, in the kind of the 2D medieval aspect, because they hadn't really rediscovered, 3D, or the imitation 3D that the Romans had, because this was during towards the end of the Dark Ages. But I mean, the thing is that it's true to life. It tells you a truth about reality. And it talks about the inescapability of death, because it claims everyone. And
but let's go back to your accelerator idea, because I like that. You crash two electrons together, and you see what comes out.
Yeah. And it's not just people; it's ideas.
Well, wait a minute, though. You don't really see what comes out, do you, when your characters smash into each other?
No, you don't see what comes out. You see how it plays out. You see the consequences of it.
Not how you want it to play out as the author?
No, and that's where accuracy and realism comes in. So one of the things about Shakespeare's tragedies is that the characters themselves, Macbeth, Othello, Shylock, Lear, they endure tragedies, but they're not really ever able to gain too much of a lesson from it. That's for the audience. Othello stabs himself after realizing that Iago has betrayed him. Well, there's no real redemption for him. He still doesn't understand what's gone on. And so it's for the audience to get the message. King Lear, in the opening of the play, he abdicates his kingdom to his three daughters, Goneril, Regan, and Cornelia. And to the eldest daughters, who give him shows of love, to which he is blind that they are false. False. He parcels out the kingdom, and to Cordelia, who refuses to give, falsity. He banishes her, and so he's blind to evil. And then what happens right after that is evil takes over and casts him out naked into a wilderness in a storm. And then when people like Kent, protest against this, gonorrhea plucks out his eyes. And so there's the violence. It's the violence of consequence.
Okay, let's go back to your novel. You have several scenes where these electrons crash into each other and things happen. Do we have to know anything about you to appreciate those scenes?
There's actually a lot of it that's...
Because, I mean,
scenery-wise,
you've always struck me as kind of a postmodernist.
I'm anything but.
Okay, well, okay. That's right. You call me the postmodernist.
Yeah, I do indeed.
So I do have to know something about you to figure out what's going on in your novel.
Well, here's what I'd say is, like, many years ago, I used to say that the artist had no responsibility to anything at all, and I have since completely renounced that. I think the one thing that the artist has a responsibility to is truth, and I don't know what you would call truth. I mean truth with a capital T.
So violence gives truth?
I think it's not so much that it gives truth, so much that without it you can't have it. Now, again, violence is not...
So that's where the meaning comes from. The truth about the human being is we are violent.
No, I think that's actually a very shallow interpretation of it. No, absolutely not. Because there's so much more to us than just that. We have love, we have happiness. Man is a giddy thing. There's sorrow,
well,
there's
a lot of
melancholy,
people
and there's tragedy.
associate violence with sex.
And I think rightfully so.
And if we have no sex, we have no human beings.
Yeah.
So if we take violence out of our equation, what are we left with?
Yeah, but we still have love. We still have the kin between
the pure love of God between a monk and his.
No. That's absolutely
that's
ridiculous.
That's going to make a lot of babies.
No. But I mean, that's not the whole of your life. Your whole of your life isn't just simply violence and sex. I mean, that's just gratuity.
But if you took that out,
what would you be left with?
Would we have meaning?
You can't take it out. I think that's
because that's what we are.
That's part of it. I mean, it's like taking out, sadness. It's like giving a lobotomy. Yeah, I suppose you're still human, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're much reduced. You're more like, you're even less than an animal, because I mean, even a dog can be happy and be sad and have passions. Certainly not to the kind of nuance.
So now we're dogs?
Good God, I hope not.
Me too, because I'm not a dog person.
Not me either.
But so novels without violence are missing an important aspect of...
No, they're perfectly legitimate. I mean, Marilyn Robinson's Gilead has...
I'm not familiar. I've never read that.
It takes place in Ohio, in a nice, quaint little town, and there's no violence at all. But it talks about life, but it also has to account for it. One of the things that they, early on, it follows a preacher named Ames, and one of the things he talks about is, he was talking about why were there, about the Spanish influenza, and he makes the comment that perhaps God afflicted mankind with that so that the people who died wouldn't later on be involved in war and kill and break one of his commandments. So even in a book that doesn't have any violence, it still has to account for it.
Okay.
At least if it's a theological book.
In your view, is the historical figure of Jesus even possible?
I think that's kind of irrelevant. I don't even really care. I mean, it's
not irrelevant to a Roman Catholic.
I was raised Catholic myself, but I've been defrocked. So, but I mean, no, whether or not he existed, I think is irrelevant.
No, but could he have been this pure person?
No, I doubt it. If he did exist, then I doubt he was ever so good as he was made out to be. If he doesn't, it doesn't really matter. I mean, Aristotle talked about three things. I mean, he says, he talked about, if gods exist and they're good, well, then we please them by doing good by them. If they exist and they're evil, then we do good by defying them, because we don't want to give in to evil. And if they don't exist, well, then we do each other good.
In our literature, do we need Jesus and that view of who we are? And do we need Adolf Hitler, Genghis Khan, or the president of Syria and that view of what we are?
I don't think that's really the right way of looking. Is like whether or not we need them. They just are. It's not a matter.
I'm talking about as writers. If we're going to depict life, does our writing have to have characters like those?
Not all of them, certainly. But if that's the kind of subject matter that you want to talk about, you're interested in, then you better be honest about what actually there is and not whitewash things.
Okay. Well, this has indeed been exhilarating discussion. I've enjoyed it much, much more, and I hope that we can have you back for another extended discussion on postmodernism.
Oh.
Because you say you're not one, and
yeah, absolutely not. There's no way in hell I'll ever be that.
I hope not, because I don't think you can fully appreciate the violence and meaning of your current work without knowing a little something about you or any author. Maybe it's just the English teacher in me. But this has been a great show, and I think you've shown a light on violence and meaning in literature. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you, Norm, for having me.
That's a wrap.